Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bob Listenby. I'm one of two first assistants working for DA Krasner. We're here today to provide weekly gun crimes update and to express to all of you all in the city as well our commitment to holding shooters accountable and ensuring the drivers of gun violence face appropriate consequences. I'd like to acknowledge community stakeholders, staff, and media. First of all, Ms. Carolyn Timmon, who is the other first assistant here at the District Attorney's Office, Ms. Chesley Lightsey, Chief of our District Attorney's Office Homicide and Non-Fatal Shootings Unit. Thank you. Ms. Deborah Watson-Stokes, who is Chief of the District Attorney's Office Municipal Court Unit. Reverend Myra Maxwell, who is Director of the DAO's CARES program, which is a Crisis Assistance Response and Engagement for Survivors program. Now I'd like to turn to the gun crimes update for November 20th through November 26th. Homicides year-to-date are 506. This date last year, there were 450 homicides. There's been an increase of 12%. Homicides and non-fatal shootings for November 20th through the 26th. Again, 7 homicides this past period. 17 non-fatal shootings. Incidents, arrests, cases involved for November 20th through 26th. There were 185 gun or gun violence incidents, 47 arrests made by law enforcement, 47 cases opened by the District Attorney's Office. The median bail set for illegal possession of guns was $125,000. The median bail set for violent offenses with guns was $200,000. ADA Chesley Lightsey, Chief of the District Attorney's Homicide Unit, Homicide and Non-Fatal Shootings Unit, will be available for questions regarding any of the following incidents, which we will discuss shortly with the press. Let me go over a few of them. A lot of very serious incidents, particularly in the last 28 to 48 hours. On Wednesday, November 24th, at approximately 4:30 p.m., on the 7th block of Jackson Street in the 3rd Police District, an approximately 55-year-old black female was shot 3 times in her chest. She was transported to Jefferson Hospital, where she was placed in critical condition. An arrest has been made on this case. This past weekend, there was on Saturday, the 27th, at approximately 3 p.m., on the 700 block of North 10th Street in the 6th Police District, an approximately 51-year-old black male was shot 1 time in the left shoulder. He was transported to Jefferson Hospital, where he was pronounced shortly thereafter. No arrest has been made, and no weapon has been recovered by the Philadelphia Police Department at this time. Anyone with information should contact Philadelphia Police Department Homicides Unit at 215-686-3334. Later that evening, on Saturday, November 27th, at approximately 7 p.m., at the 500 block of West Buchanan Avenue in the 35th Police District, an approximately 33-year-old Hispanic male was shot 18 times throughout his body. He was transported to Einstein Hospital, where he was pronounced. No arrest has been made in this case, and no weapon has been recovered by the Philadelphia Police Department at this time. Again, anyone with information should contact the Philadelphia Police Department's Homicide Unit at 215-686-3334. On Sunday, November 28th, at approximately 1:30 p.m., on the 200 block of North Park Avenue in the 22nd Police District, an approximately 21-year-old white male was shot 4 to 5 times in the chest. He was transported to Temple Hospital, where he was pronounced shortly thereafter. This was an attempted carjacking and robbery. No arrest has been made. No weapon has been recovered by the Philadelphia Police Department at this time. Anyone with information should contact PPD's Homicide Unit again at 215-686-3334. On Sunday evening at approximately 8 p.m. on the 400 block of Diamond Street in the 26th Police District, at approximately 16-year-old black male was shot 8 times throughout the body. He was transported to the Temple Hospital, where he was later pronounced. No arrest has been made at this time by the Philadelphia Police Department, and no weapon has been recovered. Anyone with any information should again contact the PPD's homicide unit at 215-686-3334. It got worse for the evenings. A quadruple shooting occurred last night at 8 p.m. on the 1300 block of South 50th Street in the 12th Police District. There were 4 victims. Victim 1, approximately 22-year-old black male, was shot 1 time in the right leg. Victim number 2, an approximate 21-year-old black male, was shot 1 time in the right leg. Victim number 3, an approximate 28-year-old black male, was shot 2 times in the right thigh and suffered a grazed wound to the chest. Victim number 4, an approximate 40-year-old black male, was shot 1 time in the right leg. All 4 victims were transported to the Presbyterian Hospital, and the first 3 were placed in stable condition. The 4th victim was placed in critical condition. Anyone with any information regarding this incident should contact Philadelphia Police Department Southwest Detectives Division at 215-686-3184. At 11 p.m. last night, on the 4700 block of Asheville Street in the 15th Police District, a 31-year-old black male was shot 1 time on the left side of his face while attempting to break into a private residence. The male was transported to the Jefferson Towardsdale Hospital, where he was placed in critical condition. There were no arrests. No arrests have been made at this time by the Philadelphia Police Department. A firearm has been recovered. Again, anyone with any information regarding this incident should contact the PPD's Northeast Detectives Division at 215-686-3154. We are now at the level of having 506 homicides in the city and county of Philadelphia for this year. This is a senseless and traumatizing series of events, and it doesn't really reflect who we are as Philadelphians. We can do a lot better than this. Every young person in the city should feel safe walking to and from school. Every mom should feel safe driving home from a baby shower or any other event. Senior citizens who've worked hard and many who are trying to enjoy retirement should be able to live in peace in their communities. Gun violence has increased in most major cities across the nation. However, the DAO is committed to working with law enforcement and community stakeholders to develop new, sensible, and innovative solutions to reduce the bloodshed that's going on in our city. Investing in prevention initiatives, equitable education, and workforce development is a necessary component of a long-term strategy. Coordinated law enforcement, vigorous prosecution, and violence interruption initiatives are necessary for short-term strategies. We can do better, and we must do better if we're going to have a better city. Our CARES team has responded to a number of families in the last week, providing advocacy, crisis support, and referral services as needed. Families impacted by gun violence can contact our Victim Services and CARES unit for support at 215-686-8019. As so many of you are aware, this has been a particularly violent week in our city. And, you know, it touches our hearts to know that so many people have been negatively impacted by this violence. It brings many of us almost to tears. We're going to continue to work here at the District Attorney's Office. We work harder and longer, and I want you to know that we're open to new ideas and new strategies and new approaches to addressing this problem. So if there are any folks out there who have some new approaches you'd like to recommend to us, let us know. At this time, I'd like to open up to questions from the press, and I'd like to acknowledge, again, Chesley Lights, who's probably going to end up coming up here to answer many of the questions that you have about the specific incident. Yes?
Hi, good morning, and or afternoon. Any details you can provide on the arrest regarding the Jackson Street homicide of the 55-year-old woman?
Okay. Chesley?
I can tell you that the SWAT was called. There was, for a time, a barricade situation, but ultimately the defendant in that case, who's a 63-year-old man, was taken into custody without further incident. So.
And is this considered a domestic at this point, or do you know the relationship between the defendant?
Yeah. It's my understanding that the defendant had been in approximately a 30-year relationship with the victim in this case. I do believe that they were estranged at the time.
Any indication of any sort of stay
There was a PFA in effect, however, it wasn't specific to this victim, but rather to another family member of the victim.
Okay. One last question on this. The barricade situation, was that the defendant's own home?
It is not my belief that it was his actual residence, although I do believe it was a place where he was staying. I don't think he had run into, if you're asking me if it was a stranger's home or something that he ran into, it's not my understanding that is the case. It's okay.
Free homicide star. The 16-year-old, do we have any indication kind of what that was about? Was there an argument? Was there
So what I can tell you is that there are 8 FCCs on the scene, and there are definitely 2 shooters. The 16-year-old is absolutely the intended target, but I don't have information to share at this time as to what the motivation may have been.
And do you have any caliber weapons? You know, what kind of weapon was used? What kind of is it like a high-powered,
Give me 1 second, let me see if I can answer that. It's okay. What I have is some .40 caliber FCCs, and yeah, nothing looks like it's going to be like a high an unusual weapon, if you will, and I hate to use that term, but.
And then when it comes to the Temple University student, is there any movement there, any video?
So there is video, and still more video being recovered. It looks pretty clear that this is going to be an attempted carjacking or robbery, both, if you will. And there has been forensic evidence recovered that we are hopeful will link us to the defendant, but I won't go into more detail about what that is at this point.
Do we know if you tried to like fight him off? Is that what you're trying to
It looks like at some point the victim may have begun to fight back, but it's a little unclear if this was, it appears that it's after he'd already been shot.
My last question is Jessica Covington, is there any movement on that case?
So what I can tell you about that, so that's the case from November 20th, just as a background for anyone else. The 7-month pregnant woman who was shot and killed, as well as the child. No one has been ruled out as a suspect at this point. We've been able to rule out shooters, but there's been no one's ruled out, and that case is fully ongoing. And that case is assigned to Detective Daly of the Homicide Detective Division, and I literally was just on the phone with him, so they're still working that really hard, but they haven't been able to rule anyone completely out at this point.
In terms of the Hispanic man shot 18 times, any leads on the motive of the 18 shots so far?
So I want to also update on that. So that victim had been reported initially as 33 years old. He's actually 24 years old. I just want to make that clear. There are 2 shooters in that case. It's obvious from what we have. He is the intended target. We do not have any motivation what that would be about at this point. There were 24 FCCs recovered from the scene. As we already said, the victim was hit 18 times, and that is assigned to Detective Tim Scally at the Homicide Detective Division. Anyone with information should reach out directly to the Homicide Division.
Do you know if the homicide detectives are getting tips? Like, you guys say it all the time. Are they getting the public's help?
I do think they are getting help from the public, maybe not in every case, but in many cases. Their investigations also rely very heavily on video recovery, whether that be from private residences or businesses, and they also get help, and sometimes we use warrants as well, but there are a lot of folks who are willing to help in different ways. Anything else?
Are there any other questions?
Do you know where DA Krasner is?
DA Krasner is out of town at the present time, but he is monitoring what's going on here at the office and very closely, and he's available if I need him. Other questions? All right, thank you very much for joining us today.